Today's guest on the podcast has a fascinating, multifaceted career in the dance music industry. Working closely with Oliver Heldens as the label manager of Heldeep Records, HILOMATIK and OH2, he's here to provide insight into what's involved in managing world-class record labels. Alongside this, he's also a DJ, producer, podcast host and owns a promotional company for DJs in the Netherlands. A talent both behind the scenes and in the booth, please welcome Rick Scholing.
Eyes wide open, 5 a.m. should go to bed. Thoughts out loud, still be swimming.
Rick, how are you?
Thank you, I'm very good. I'm glad to be here. It's my first time in this part of the UK. Like I go to London quite a lot of times, but I've never really been outside of London.
Yeah.
So it's great to be like in Leeds now, actually. It's a nice experience.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I know, so obviously you're in Leeds to be on the booth, but why else? What else brings you to Leeds?
Honestly, visiting a bunch of friends, spending some time in the studio here. I went to Creamfields earlier, so I was nearby. So it was my first English experience of a festival.
Really?
Been to festivals all over the world, but for some reason, I've never been to an English festival.
No way.
Yeah,
what a place to start at Creamfields
yeah, right?
as well.
Yeah,
How was that?
It was really good. I had a wicked time. Like a bunch of friends came over. I know a lot of artists that are there. So.
You were hanging out with Fortet.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, that was cool. That's actually really funny because a friend of mine, he's probably the biggest fan that you can imagine for like Fred Again and stuff like that. He loves all the stuff Fortet is doing as well. And I sent him a picture and he was like, "Mate, stop it."
Do you know him, or was that the first time you'd met him at Creamfields?
I had to kind of like build up some courage to go and see him because it was like later on during the day. He was about to go on in like half an hour or so. You don't really go and especially bump into an artist that you don't know and go like, "Hey mate, this and that." So you don't want to bother them right
especially before a set, yeah.
Exactly. But I do remember like last year I went to a Hungarian festival called Sziget Festival. And he was playing there and he did a back-to-back with Skrillex, which was the most insane set I've ever seen, like ever. So I just had to tell him that. So I built up my courage, had that one final sip of my drink, and I walked up to him and was like, "Sorry, mate, I don't want to bother you, but can I just say that set at Sziget was insane?" And he was like, "Oh, thank you. I can't believe you were there." And we started talking a little bit. So I was like, "Is it okay if I grab a picture with you?" He's like, of course. Like, and then like I started talking to him a bit more. And so one of the guys that I know there, it's a DJ called Oliver Heldens. He was there. So he joined into the conversation and we were all talking. And then Oliver went to him like, "Can I just grab a very like amateuristic selfie with you?" So Oliver went like this and then got photobombed by David Guetta.
Oh, that's amazing.
Best photobomb I've seen. So yeah, long story short, meeting Fortet, grabbing that picture and everything at Creamfields was like full picture. It was so
Did that
fun.
picture get posted? I need to see that.
I'm not sure if it did actually. It might soon, but that was like, imagine being on a festival. It wasn't me this case, obviously. So I'm telling someone else's story, which I don't really like to do, but like it's his story, right?
You were there though. Oh.
Imagine taking a photo with Fortet being photobombed by David Guetta. That's the best photobomb I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
so,
pretty epic.
Yeah.
It is your story though. You were.
Yeah, I was standing next to him. So, but yeah, that was Creamfields for me. So I had a wicked experience. First festival ticked off. Great festival to start with. Brilliant time. Saw so many good people. And then I came here and it's like kind of like just chilling, having a good time with friends, being in the studio. Last night we were up till quite late checking out music, and I'm like very nerdy with that stuff. So, we were going back and forth, me and a mate of mine, we were going back and forth about like, "Oh, you have to check this track, and do you know this one?" and stuff like that. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and when you got here, you were talking a bit about AI as well, and we were like listening to songs that AI has made, and it's like, it's crazy. So I know that's probably
crazy,
part of the discussion last night as
it
well.
It was, yeah. How to deal with AI nowadays, because it's getting better and better, and you can use it as a tool, as an artist, as a producer, but it gets dangerous when you start using it to produce songs and then release those songs. Yeah. I'm kind of the opinion that you can use it, but do your own legwork with it. Like, do actually put the hours in to produce the actual records or the ideas that it comes up with, and use it as a tool rather as like your go-to thing to make music, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's a tool, not a replacement. Yeah. We could probably do a whole episode on that.
Oh yeah, you can.
It kind of blows your mind a little bit.
Easily. You can spend hours talking about that stuff.
Yeah. So you wear a lot of hats in the music industry. Mm-hmm. Could we hear from you in your own words what you do in music?
I think it best summed up as a jack of all trades, really. So I run a record label. I run a company promoting music for DJs. I run a podcast, and I am an artist. So I pretty much do everything. And now I start venturing into management as well. So before you know it, I'll literally be able to do anything. Hopefully know a lot about all these different kinds of angles. And it all comes together nicely. Though. At the end of the day, I just love making music, being involved in music, promoting music. I'm that kind of guy at a party that's like, have you heard this song by this artist? I bet you'll love it. That kind of person. And all of these things that I do, all of the different kinds of angles of music I work in, all come together in that. So that's probably the best description.
That's perfect for the podcast. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this episode. Do you have a typical week? Is there like a typical week in your life, or does it vary?
Do you know what? Recently, it's been quite varied because I've been traveling quite a bit. I just came back from holiday, went to Malta, had a lovely time there. And honestly, I can't get away from music because I landed at the airport. It was 2 a.m. First face I see is a poster of like 2 stories tall of Oliver performing there at the end of the week. I'm like, what?
Yeah, so that's Oliver Heldens.
Literally, Oliver Heldens,
so
yeah. Sorry, I tend to say Oliver a lot because I work with him, I know him well. Yeah. So, it's kind of like, it's a standard thing I do. So up front, sorry about that. Just know when I say Oliver, it's Oliver Heldens most of the times. Yeah, so anyways, but my standard, like to answer your question, my standard week is actually, the way I prefer it the most is to wake up pretty much every day around the same time, usually around 8 a.m., have my cup of coffee, watch the news. There'll be like 8:30 before I kind of get up, start freshening up myself, go to work. We don't really start until like 10:30 at the office where I do my 9 to 5 job. But I tend to get in a couple of hours earlier, maybe sometimes go for a walk instead or whatever, do some calls. Then be at the office for a couple of hours, do my usual work, come home, maybe go to the gym and just relax. Just literally like a regular, like normal person's schedule. I kind of prefer that over like the countless like chaos that's always going on, because as much fun as it is, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love being on the road, meeting a lot of people, doing all kinds of things. You just don't get any work done. And I'm a very practical person. I like to tick off my boxes and my checklist and be like, okay, I did this today and that today and so and so. But at the same time, I love playing music and stuff. I love being in the studios and I love being around artists. So, it really varies. But this is like my standard go-to most of the times.
Yeah, well, it sounds like for someone that works in the music industry, you've got a lot of routine, which is good. But it sounds like you work a 7-day week. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, kind of. You when you work in music, you're never done. Yeah. Like, especially like that's why I never really ventured into management, because as a manager you can get a call up at like 2 a.m. of an artist stuck in like Argentina, whatever, at an airport, and like, I can't get into the country, you need to help me now. And I'm like, I don't know if I would cope with that. Like, I would much rather be the artist at that point. So that's why I never really touched management per se, but like anything else, I'm not able to leave my laptop at work and not work from while I'm home, because I always get texts and everything like from people in the industry. But I don't have that pressure to have to immediately act on everything right away. And as a manager, you do. So that's kind of like it. I am always working around the clock. Always that button's always pushed in of like, you have to be aware you're doing everything in music, so everything can happen at any time. But I am mindful of that in a sense that I sometimes literally turn off my phone.
You have to sometimes, unless you're a manager.
Especially on Sundays, like I would turn off my phone. It would be off all day. I get friends texting me saying, hey, have you blocked me? Because I can only see one tick on WhatsApp, whatever. And then I'm just watching football, whatever, or playing video games or just chilling at home. Like, that's the kind of stuff I have to do to keep myself sane, to be honest.
No, absolutely. Like, it prevents burnout, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
We live on our phones. It's like we're in the metaverse, and so being able to switch off is important. And like you say, it's interesting that point you made about being a manager. You can't do that.
You can't even go on holiday. Like, if your artists are on the road, like, you have to be available 24/7. So yeah, for me, that's kind of like, I have to push myself sometimes to say, take a break and do something else besides music. I'm a big football fanatic. I've got a lot of friends who work in football or are like ex-professional football players, and we play FIFA together and stuff like that until like very late night as well. So, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And it's something that it resets your brain a little bit. It freshens you up before you go to the office again and do your run-of-the-mill work. So
Yeah, it's so important, and it's nice to hear that from you as well, who does so many things in music.
yeah.
Let's go back to the very start. What was your musical upbringing like as a kid?
So my parents used to listen to a lot of classic rock. So in my like up until like I was 15 or so, all I used to listen to was like 70s, 80s, 90s, mostly 70s and 80s though. So I love like disco. I love like the classic rock, like bands like Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin and that kind of stuff. And I know a lot of those acts and all of that kind of music thanks to my parents. But I never really got into dance back then. So up until I was 15, I never really listened to dance. I never was like I had any aspirations of working in dance, whatever. I did like radio. So my mom, she used to be like she was taking care of like a lot of elderly people. Like she would come to their houses, help them with their everyday stuff. And she was working for this woman, and her son worked at national radio. And that woman was like 90 years old or something. And her son is like in his 60s, was like a classic radio presenter from like one of the key national radio stations. And my mom mentioned that I had an interest in music and in radio in particular. So she then spoke to her son and was like, maybe this young kid, I was like 12 at the time or so, can come down to the studio one day and see you work. So that was my very first encounter with actual radio. It was like one day at like the national radio studios, experience what it was like behind the scenes. And like maybe you do recognize this as well, but as a kid, you have no idea what radio is, the way it works, whatever. And if you listen to it, it sounds like this like miracle voice coming out of nowhere. And then, when most people start seeing an actual studio, their dream shatters into pieces because they see, oh, it's actually like it's a desk with like a couple of microphones and stuff, and it's still magical that they can play a lot of music, but there's so much more to it behind the scenes than like that and the kind of like innocent like miracle voice that tells you about like some of the artists and stuff, and there's great stories that they encountered during their careers. So that dream shattered, but at the same time another dream started, because like, this is what I live for. This is what I want to do. So from very young age, I started like showing an interest into radio, went to like a local radio station, like, learned the ropes there a little bit, like for as far as possible. And then eventually decided, like I had an older nephew and he studied journalism. And I thought this is a great way to continue on this journey and get into radio and stuff. So I started studying journalism as well. And then eventually found myself like in my first year, I was like freshman year, I need to get experience in. So I, out of the blue, just emailed one of the biggest stations in the Netherlands called Radio 538. I said like, hey, I'm 19 years old. I want to learn about anything regarding radio. Is there like any job openings you have, any internships, whatever? I'm open for anything. But keep in mind, I do have to do, at that point, I still had to do like 40 hours a week in school, right? Yeah. Like you have to like study. So I got a response from one of the producers there saying, oh, sure, yeah, we have something for you, maybe. Just come in and do an interview. So I came down there. It was like a studio 2 hours away from my school. Went down there at 538, was talking to the producer, and he was like, so we are looking for this person to help us assist setting up a new radio program. It's called the Global Dance Chart. It's like a top 40 for dance music. Again, me without like knowing anything about dance. It's like, sounds cool. It's an opening. I want to do this. So I jumped on the opportunity. So like, yeah, let's do it. I'll come in. Doesn't like, no matter what it takes. So from that moment on, in my freshman year, I landed a job at like 538 as a part-time producer. It was like 10 hours a week. I did that next to my education. I did not sleep at that point, but I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I started learning anything there is about radio. And that kind of got it going for me. So that's like my first step. So from learning about like classical rock and those kind of songs, like the actual hits from back in the 70s, 80s, to like encountering dance, being like a top 40 for dance music, a producer on the show. That's kind of how I started going with all of what I'm doing now, basically.
That's fascinating. You were so young as well, 19, and you were 12 when you first kind of was shown the ropes.
Yeah.
What was there something that initially sparked your interest in radio when you were very young?
It must have been that I just love telling other people about artists and music. And if I'm passionate about a song, like when I'm passionate, I would go to miles to tell you and literally show you, like, hey, almost as if I'm grabbing a set of headphones and be like, Grace, listen to this. Like, this is incredible. Like, and I wouldn't be able to pinpoint what was incredible about it. It would be that feeling of like, this just has something. And I'm trying to get you to be enthusiastic about it as well. So I think that's, in a nutshell, what radio does. Because they showcase you the latest music, or from like the newest, hottest artists in the world, or some of the classic songs, and be like, this is good stuff. You need to hear this. Like,
so you're getting paid for something you were already doing, essentially, with your friends.
Basically, yeah.
More to an audience that tune in to hear that, rather than just your friends like forcing it upon them. Like, come on, listen to this, listen to this, here's this.
It's kind of like that, yeah. And then nothing beats presenting a top 40 show. Like, I wasn't a presenter at that point, obviously, but like a top 40, a rundown of the 40 biggest dance hits on planet Earth is like literally that. These are the songs you need to hear. These are the songs you need to be aware about. Like, you need to know that these exist. So that kick-started it all for me, like I said, and that's my enthusiasm in a nutshell. So yeah, it fitted in perfectly.
Yeah, and that was in your first year at uni, and I know you had a mentor whilst you were at uni who sort of helped you through the next steps.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was the guy who was actually presenting the show. His name's Wessel van Diepen. He's a legendary radio show host in the Netherlands. He's one of the founding fathers of 538 as well. And he, to this day, for as far as I know, is still the most successful pop dance producer ever in the Netherlands. He started a project called the Venga Boys. So, you know, we all know the records from the Venga Boys.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to Ibiza and boom, 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 boom. Like those kind of records, they're all well known. So, but it blows my mind that he's still number one, because then probably they do not count Tiesto as pop dance or whatever. But setting that aside, so he was kind of like the biggest guy in radio, especially when it came to dance. Because he's also used to present a radio show called Dance Department, which is one of the biggest dance radio shows ever coming from the Netherlands. And it's syndicated over 1,000 stations worldwide and stuff like that. So it's massive. And he then wanted to start this new project called the Global Dance Chart. So when I got introduced to him, and I noticed that he's one of those people that when he starts talking, you just can't do anything else but listen. You're literally admiring every word he says. It's like, as if, I don't want to go this far because I don't want to really put him like that high up, but it's like as if God is speaking, right? So that's the kind of guy Wessel is. So, and because I was working for him at the Global Dance Chart, I spent about 10 hours every week with him. And he, like, one of my first things I had to do for the radio show was kind of write the lines in between, like the songs. So it's like it would be a mixed, like, it's a very unique concept, the Global Dance Chart, because what it essentially is like, it's a top 40, but 3 or 4 songs are mixed. It's like a block of mixed songs. So you would only hear like maybe a minute and a half of one of the records. And then in between those blocks, there's like a couple of lines of text, and he would present that. So you'd be like, oh, and this was Calvin Harris, and up next is this and this. So I would write those lines of text. But then I would always end up with like 5, 6, or 7 lines of text or something. And he would like see that, go over like the notes and stuff, and he would slim it down to like 2 or 3 lines of text. And it's exactly the core of what you want to say, but you can't, like, you're not able to do that for some reason. Like, he's so good at fine-tuning every word he says. And I learned a lot from that, because I then, like, I did that for, I want to say about 5 or 6 years. And throughout those years, I literally learned how to kind of like get to the point of something when you're writing it down. And that really helped in my education as well, because, you know, as a journalist, you need to tell like exactly what the story is about without elaborating too much. So I honed a lot of like my skills that I still use to this day, thanks to him. And he introduced me to a lot of people. Like, oftentimes he would be away and we would do interviews, and he offered me the opportunity to do some interviews. So I interviewed like Martin Garrix when he came up. There was this act, I still remember this, it's like, there used to be this hit called Don't Be So Shy by Imani. and it was remixed by an act called Filatov and Karas, and they're Russian guys. And I remember we wanted to have an interview with them, but Wessel couldn't do it. So he asked me to jump on Zoom with them because they were somewhere in Russia. And I remember talking to one of the guys, and he was like in his car in the middle of a snowstorm, and he had to talk to me for like half an hour or so. And you can hear that in the background. And you kind of have to manage that all. Like, obviously, it's not going to sound great, and it's hectic and stuff like that. So Wessel kind of gave me the tools to manage all that.
How did you do that though? If he was Russian and you're Dutch, did you do the interview in English? In English, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and for as good as it gets. Really.
Is that quite a common thing then on Dutch radio to have English links or English features?
Not always. What they would often do is like, obviously there's interviews with big artists. Like if Ed Sheeran was to come to 538, they would do it all in English, makes sense. But like what we would do, and what in particular Wessel would do, is we would do the interview, and the interview would be like 25 minutes. He would cut it down to like 30 seconds or something. He would use 30 seconds of it, like only the very, very best part of it. Usually something revolving the song, whatever. Then he would translate it after. So he would be like, you hear the artist say like, oh yeah, I was in the studio and I was doing this and that and so and so. And he would then, Wessel would afterwards translate it into Dutch as well. Because he knows that even though everyone in the Netherlands pretty much perfectly speaks English, like they can understand, they can speak, they have a normal conversation and stuff. There's always that kind of people, the group of people that's like, but I'm not tuning in to hear English words. I'm tuning in to hear Dutch.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Totally fair enough.
Exactly. So he would translate it for them, but it would, because it's so slimmed down to like 30 seconds, it's manageable. He wouldn't do that for an interview of like 15, 20 minutes.
So how did you end up in the Caribbean? Because I know you did an internship for about half a year, didn't you, whilst you were at uni?
Yeah.
What was that about?
So this radio show was syndicated there. I don't know if it's common knowledge, but one of the Caribbean islands, it's called Curacao, used to be Dutch. Used to be a Dutch colony back in the days. And they speak Dutch there. So on the other side of the world, of the coast of Venezuela, there's a couple of islands and they speak Dutch. So, and since the radio show, The Global Dance Chart, was airing there as well, and I needed to do an internship, I decided it's a great experience for me to go abroad and like learn about new cultures, but also have a chance to work at a radio station. And this radio station, it's translated to Dolphin FM. They had this incredible studio based on a beach where you would overlook like a bit of a boulevard. And I kid you not, it would be 10 steps from the door of the studio and you would be in the water. So,
what a dream.
Yeah, and there was this massive like glass panes. And if you were behind the desk, you would overlook like the water and the boulevard and everything. It's beautiful. So I decided to go there because they had a spot for me as an intern to learn pretty much everything. And it's kind of like even though they're a very small station, they wanted to compete as if they are like one of the best. It's like, the best way I can describe it is probably if you're a very local small football club and you want to pretend like you're playing Champions League. So it's a massive difference. You have to literally do the craziest things sometimes, and I did, to be fair. I remember there's one story that we had a giveaway for a new James Bond movie, like tickets to see the movie, but we wanted to give the full James Bond experience. So we picked someone up in like a limousine, brought them to a helicopter pad, and he was flying with a heli to another spot where there was like this speedboat at the ready to drive him to, or to bring him to another harbor, and then in the harbor there would be like a Rolls Royce waiting for him to drive to the premiere, something like that. And because someone had to film it, it happened to be me, so I got to experience all that.
What a shame.
Yeah, right?
Hard day at work. So was that still in the Caribbean?
Yeah, that was still in the Caribbean.
Did that station broadcast outside the Caribbean, or was it just on the island?
Really. It's just on the island, and DAB Plus was around back then already, so people could listen to it on the internet. And I used to present a top 40 there for the island on Saturdays. So my Saturday would be like, come to the studio at like 11 a.m., pour myself a cup of coffee, get ready, prep everything. Then from 12 to like 4 or so, I would present that top 40. And this was like 2015, something like that. So I remember a lot of these records that were around back then. It's like, I was just showing them to the guys earlier, like Beyonce had a drum and bass hit back then. There was an artist called Cam who was a country singer. She's still around, but she had a hit record called Burning House back then. It was really, really good music. I think this was around the time Justin Bieber had a hit with Sorry. That was that around that moment
right,
in time.
yeah, okay.
And
Quite an iconic time for music.
Yeah, right. So I was presenting that show, and I had my parents on Skype next to me. Like it's a 6-hour time difference between Curaçao and the Netherlands. So they would be like well into really into their evening, having a couple of drinks and stuff, and just watching me present the show. And it was a beautiful time, like really really good time. I had a lot of like. Back then I was already DJing as well, so I played a lot of gigs on the island. It was all kind of moombaton, eclectic reggae, that kind of style. Yeah, which, to be fair, was a good experience because you learn how to mix pretty much anything and everything, really. So, yeah, that was me for literally half a year, just enjoying sunny beaches, like great weather, great food, a bit of radio, a bit of DJing, and like living the good life. Really.
That's the ultimate training ground for you as well.
It was.
So that's really, would you say that's where you developed most of your skills to start your career then?
Yeah, I would probably say so, even though I did most of the things already back home. But this was like my opportunity to actually play around with it and experiment because, like I said, the station was really small. So anything you could do that showcases something which was bigger was already good. It was a big win for them. I remember, maybe you know him, there's a Dutch DJ, his name is Sander Kleinenberg. He was in the top 10 in the early 2000s, top 10 of the world, mind you. So he had a couple of records on, like My Lexicon was a big hit. And he came to the island to play a gig. And I was asked, because the people at the station knew I was DJing a little bit, I was asked to, like during the interview on air, to play some beats in the background. So I was there in the studio with like CDJs all prepped and everything. Sander was in the studio doing an interview, and me in the background was just playing some kind of deep house or whatever, right? So, and I remember him being like, "Oh, you did that pretty well, right? And I have a gig later, come on by and just have a good time." So that's how I got to meet him and like a bunch of other Dutch top 40 artists. They were like, I don't know if I can say this actually, but I think one of the craziest things is like, there was this Dutch porn star that came to the island, and I remember her walking into like the studios, and do you know how like you greet each other, right? Like she was like giving me a couple of kisses on my cheeks, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest. Like those kind of weird encounters would happen on the island as well. So it's a mixed bag of everything. All the Dutch celebrities come there to holiday and to come to the studio and just have interviews. So that's how I got to meet a lot of people.
So then after the Caribbean, you came back to the Netherlands. Was it Amsterdam that you were studying in?
No, it's a place called Zwolle, which is on the other side of the country.
Right, is that where the big radio station was as well?
No, that's in Hilversum. That's in the middle of the Netherlands. And actually around that time, I used to like rack up a lot of like hours in public transport because, so Zwolle is in the north of the Netherlands. And I studied there, and if I remember correctly, every Wednesday I had to go to Hilversum, which is an hour and a half by train, to get there and do like everything at 538. But every Friday, I would also go to The Hague, which is literally on the other side, 2.5 hours away from Zwolle, because there was this like regional radio station that some of the guys that worked at 538, they hosted a show at. And there's some of the like legacy Dutch DJs, like DJ Marcello, there's the Atlantic Ocean guys, stuff like those guys were around in the 90s, basically. They would host radio shows there. Probably the biggest name is Michel de Heij. He's like a very famous Dutch house DJ. So they would have radio shows from Friday, practically around like 6 p.m. until like late. And once every Friday, I would take the train from Zwolle, go all the way down to The Hague, spend some couple of hours there in the studio, in the radio studio with those guys. There was this duo, Mark van Dalen and Erwin van der Bleek. They used to do this show called Turbulence, and it would be like house, techno, and that kind of stuff. And it would go on for like 3 hours. We would all have drinks and everything. It's kind of like how you would think it's like if you go to friends and you have like a couple of drinks and you play some tunes. Kind of like that. That's the vibe they were going for. It was really cool. And every time it would end at like 10 p.m. and I remember having to run for the train because back then I was still living with my parents, and my parents used to live in a remote town which was very hard to get to. So at 10 p.m. I had to run for the train, get the train, travel for 2 hours till it was midnight, take a taxi back to my hometown, basically be home by like 1 a.m. or so, And then obviously on Saturdays, like you have the day off pretty much, but I was playing football locally and stuff. So was busy right again. But like I would do that every single Friday. And we'll eventually get to why this was very useful for me, but not in the last place, because I got a lot of extra radio experience there, got to meet some of the 90s legends. But it's like it really set me up for a bit later on in the story, which we'll touch base on. I'll tell you exactly when, but like it was very useful, but like very time consuming as well.
Yeah, that is commitment. Like
It is,
you must
yeah.
have been so sure, right, this is what I want to do, to invest that much time, because especially like that's the time of your life where you probably wanted to go out, like you say, like play football all the time
Yeah.
and just live that student life. But the fact you dedicated so much of your student days to that obviously will have helped massively.
Yeah.
What was your first project or job coming out of uni?
So to be fair, when I was working at 538 as like an intern, and I stayed on at 538 during my entire time at university, when I graduated, around that time, Armada Music, Armin van Buuren's record label, they knocked on the door and they were like, "Would you like to come in for an interview?" This happened through LinkedIn. Can you believe it? So, like, I don't know what it was like for you, but at least for me, freshman year in uni, they couldn't stop talking about how you had to start up your own LinkedIn page and how you had to maintain it, make sure that you build your connections out and stuff like that. And I was always of the opinion of like, yeah, sure, I'll do it one day or whatever. Like, and I got a few connections in here and there. And then all of a sudden I got approached through LinkedIn by one of the HR people at Armada saying like, "Hey, we see what you've been doing and we'd love for you to come in and talk about what you're actually doing and maybe you can come work for us."
Wow,
So,
what an opportunity just to come straight to you.
out of the blue as well. So yeah, they obviously seen what I did for 538 with the radio show, with the Global Dance Chart and stuff, and they saw some of the contacts I had. So I came in, I remember this, and this is exactly where the Hague story comes in actually. I remember sitting down with one of their head of digital at the digital department, and we were talking about like how most people of my age, early 20s, they knew like a lot of the new DJs, right? They know the name of like Martin Garrix, and they knew who Armin was. Never really spoke to them, but they know their names. But they don't know much about the history of dance, especially for the Netherlands. So I was there and I was telling that guy of like, oh yeah, I spent time with like Michel de Heij and Marcelo and Mark van Dalen and stuff. And I could see his jaw just drop to the floor. He was like, how do you as a 20-year-old know all these legends? I'm like, well, I just go to, like, that station was called Fresh FM. I would go to Fresh FM and spend time with them. And he was like, can't believe what I'm hearing. Like, how? Like, literally like that. And then also knowing Wessel, also doing the stuff with the Global Dance Chart, with the interviews with Martin Garrix and stuff. So I knew a lot of people when I started at Armada, because what they essentially offered me at first was like a place in their digital department, which was kind of like, you are in charge of getting music from artists up on Spotify and all the other platforms. But I didn't really feel that. Like, I wanted to become an A&R. I wanted to be able, kind of like what has been driving me all along, to showcase people this music is actually good. So instead of that, I ended up talking to the head of A&R there and saying like, hey, well, test me out, right? So he gave me this test of like, go onto SoundCloud, find like 10 different artists that you find cool, that we might not know, and showcase why you think they're cool. So I did that, and I showed him a bunch of artists that he didn't know of, and eventually got the job.
Love it.
Yeah.
So that's like a huge thing to come out of uni too, and especially it sounds like you've thrown in the deep end and you did like kind of wow them with that. So you were at Armada Music for how many years?
2 years.
2 years, and
Yeah.
then of course we've not even spoke really about what you do now. So you are the label manager for Oliver Heldens labels, 3 labels. So those labels are
Heldeep Records,
Yep.
OH2 Records, and HILOMATIK.
amazing. So how did you first meet Oliver? How did that opportunity come about? Because I know his record, he founded Heldeep in 2015, is that
Yeah.
right? And that was when you were at Armada, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how
Yeah,
did you?
give or take. Yeah, well, I was still in the Caribbean actually.
Oh wait,
at
okay.
that
I'm
time.
trying to work out this
Yeah, it was a
timeline.
little before. But
Okay,
that's fine.
so when did you meet Oliver?
So I was actually still at Armada back then, and so this was towards the back end of that 2 years. And when I first came to Armada, I was like brought on as a junior A&R. When I left, I was running the radio promo division for the Netherlands. I was their main DJ promoter, and I was one of the A&Rs. So I did 3 different things. But I could kind of tell, like, and this is nothing against Armada. It's a massive company. There's like 100 plus people working there. So eventually you'll be stuck in like a specific position. What I wanted to do is broaden my horizon. I wanted to learn everything there is about the label side. So his manager at the time, who's still his manager now, also represented another artist. And that artist had a label at Armada, one of the sub-labels. And I was talking to that artist, and it was like, he was putting out a new record. And I said to him, like, I'll get David Guetta and Chesto and stuff to play your record. He was like, I don't believe you. You're not going to get that going, mate. I was like, watch me. So eventually, David Guetta and Chesto and stuff started playing that record, right? Because that was part of my job.
Of course they did, yeah.
And he was blown away with that. So he was like, you got to meet my manager and stuff. So his manager, like I said, is Oliver's manager as well. So we started talking. I was explaining to him that even though I was in a good spot with Armada, it was like time for me to learn more things. And he was like, well, have I got something for you here, mate? So he told me that Heldeep at the time was with Spinnin' Records. I kind of like the direct competitor to Armada at that time. And they wanted to build a team around the label, because the way it works with these smaller labels is usually those bigger labels take care of it. So they have a marketing manager working for, say, Armada or Spinnin', and he or she gets one of those labels assigned as well. So whenever Oliver, in this case, would sign a record, the marketing manager at one of those labels would work the record, like in this case, Spinnin'. But what Oliver's ambitions were is like build his own team, start signing more records, and kind of branch out in that sense. So that's why I was having conversations with his manager all of a sudden. Like, we've got this position, it's brand new, there's no one there. We want to build a team around Oliver. And the first thing I said is like, I like the idea, but I want to speak to Ollie about this. I want to know what he's like. And I got on a call and a couple of calls after as well. And kind of like, it clicked well enough for me to say, okay, let's do this. Like, because the first time you meet someone, you don't really know what they're about, right? And what I immediately noticed about Oliver, he's really down to earth. He's probably the most relaxed artist you'll ever meet. He's very humble, very kind. And in a way, he's still kind of like, even though he's massive, like he's one of the biggest DJs in the world at the moment, he's like, still comes over as that bedroom producer who's grateful for every opportunity. So I really like that, because you know that I go well with that. So I decided, let's do it. Oliver wanted me to be like part of his label. I wanted the opportunity. Let's go for it. And that's been like 7.5 years ago, almost now.
So with the 3 labels, Heldeep, HILOMATIK and OH2, they've all got different sounds.
Yeah.
How would you describe the different sounds for each label?
So Heldeep is and has always been for the clubs. It's like house music, tailor-made for clubs. Nowadays we go a bit more kind of in a higher BPM range. So Oliver likes to play like 135 BPM and up nowadays. So we kind of follow his lead in that. HILOMATIK is all about techno. We launched HILOMATIK, I want to say 2022. Yeah, it is relatively new. It's the last of the 3 that we started. And OH2 Records started in 2020 and it's pop, dance and disco. So with a touch of like garage every now and then, but mostly pop and dance and disco. We've got this cool guy on from Norway, does funky house, that kind of stuff. Really.
Yeah, I love it. And so for the 3 different labels, would you say you have the same release strategy for those, or do you have different strategies for different labels?
So it's all in the same wings, essentially, because it's all part of the Heldeep brand and the same team working it. We do have a bit of a different strategy for each, because techno seems to work better on Beatport, for example, whereas like the music that we put through OH2 Records is more tailor-made for radio and streaming. So we would rather pick like a radio approach in that sense, because you know, even though you can still work techno on radio, there are specialist shows that play techno, like funky house and disco house would always win on radio, because it's daytime stuff. People would like to listen to that on daytime. They don't mind listening to a disco house record. Like think Daft Punk, for example, right? So Daft Punk would always win over Charlotte de Witt in that sense on radio. Maybe on streaming as well, although the playing field has changed a little bit in recent times, but still, like that commercial stuff does better in that sense. So it requires a different approach. And the clubbier music, the club records, they work well kind of across all the levels. to a certain degree, because nowadays you have artists like Fisher and Chris Lake and Solardo and all these guys that produce house that people listen to on the day to day, like literally during daytime. But that's a different story with the techno stuff. But it's not like this big consumption as pop music is, because pop is obviously miles bigger than dance is. So, and it goes hand in hand really well. You see that with, like I mentioned Beyonce a minute ago, that did drum and bass. So like it goes together incredibly well. But people would 9 times out of 10, prefer Dua Lipa over Chris Lake. It's just the way it is right now. So, and it's always been like that. So yeah, that's kind of like how we position the labels, and we have different strategies per label. But at the end of the day, it also, like, we build those strategies together with the artists, and we also fine tune like the way they perceive, like they showcase themselves, to show, like, for example, can we advise them on their Spotify profiles or Apple Music profiles, and say, like, we never tell artists what to do, we just advise them on certain things.
Interesting. A lot of your training and formal education was in journalism, radio, production, presenting. Where did you learn about label management and the music business side of things?
Oh, it's really been like developing throughout the years. Like that's the good thing about the music industry, you're ever learning. Like, I can have conversations with, let's say, Fatboy Slim, and Fatboy Slim can teach me probably 1,000,001 things. But I bet there's this 1 or 2 things that he doesn't know about that I might be able to teach him, because the industry is just like that, right? So, and things change, especially now, so rapidly that it's like tomorrow there might be something that I do not know, but I need to know of to stay relevant. Like, and if someone can tell me that, and that happens to be like an 18-year-old who started in the industry last week, like, I need to know that stuff. So you're ever learning with these things, and a lot of these skills came from, like, just doing it as we go, learning, encountering issues. I had a couple of mentors along the way, people that helped me, obviously, and told me these are good things to do. These are things that used to work well or might not work as well now anymore. And sometimes you just got to do a bit of trial and error there as well.
Sounds like quite an organic learning process which is nice. For those that don't know, what is the day-to-day role of a label manager?
It varies per label. The setup that we have is quite small, actually. There's only 7 people involved in Heldeep. Really? Yeah, so, and it's 3 labels. Yeah. So, and we do about 50 songs every year. For me, it's a different story, because I have to be, like, in the forefront all the time as well. So I'm an A&R. I'm a marketing manager. I do legal stuff. I pretty much even do distribution. I do everything. Like, so that's my role as a label manager. It's kind of everything comes together, and I advise and I give direction to my team about how to do certain things and assign certain jobs. Like, we have a dedicated marketing manager, and I talk to him pretty much on the daily, saying, hey, we're now signing this track. Let's work on a strategy. We can work on it together, or if he prefers so, he can pick up on it and just do it on his own, because I know what he does. I know what he's capable of. So it really is kind of like, you have to be kind of like that jack of all trades as a label manager in this regard. But if you're a label manager at a much bigger label, you're usually just worried about the layer below you, because you have your head of this, that, so and so. And those are the people you would then talk to and have meetings with and advise on certain areas, or maybe kind of explain to them the plans that you have for, like, the next half a year or whatever. So for me, it's really hands-on, but for someone else, it could mean something totally different.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So you said there's 7 of you in the team. Mm-hmm. What other job roles are there within a label?
Again, it comes down to how big the label is, because you can do literally 1,000,000 things within a label. But the basis is always, you have someone who does A&R. You have a legal department. Oftentimes, this legal department can also be someone from the outside. You can hire, like, a legal advisor or whoever. Digital marketing, you have social media and graphic design. That's the pure basis of it. We have people with several caps on in the team as well. So we have a graphic designer who also is learning the ropes about press at the moment. We have a marketing manager who does radio. So we even have a graphic designer who does merch. Like he runs our merch division. So basically, they fulfill several roles within the company, but it's only a handful of people doing that. And I think it's a great way to learn more, because if you're a graphic designer in, like, say, a big company such as Armada or Spinnin, that's your primary job and probably your sole job, to be fair. Whereas everyone is probably we all know that point where you're like, I want to learn more, I want to do different things, because I've been doing this for a while, I'm getting a little bit tired of it. I can still do it on the day to day, it's fine, but I want to experience new things. So, I think with a small label like Heldeep, we're able to give that to people who work for us, as long as they can handle it, because not everyone's up for it always. And they're not all like me, that they can put on 20 different caps at the same time and manage all that. And some people just prefer to just stick to their 9 to 5 like job that they've always known. So yeah, it really varies, but this is kind of like us in a nutshell, really. So 7 people doing 25 jobs at once.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit stressful, but also you guys must be quite a tight-knit team then, to be able to work like that and sort of like distribute the jobs sort of differently. Out of curiosity, how important do you think physical distribution is in this digital age?
Do you know what? It really is important. It's definitely something every label should consider. But in saying that, this is the first year we're considering it with the label. So we've been going, Heldeep's turning 10 this year. And this is the very first year we're going to put out some records. So we're, in a sense, we're like new to this.
Yeah, what sparked that?
My enthusiasm of vinyl.
Hey, nice.
So I'm a big vinyl fanatic. Like I'm a fan of having physical products. I'm not an expert, even though I do a bunch of things about vinyl. But I'm a fan of the medium. So I really said to the team, like, we have to consider this, because if you look at vinyl, it's had a resurgence in the last 5 odd years or so. Like, obviously it was massive in the 70s and 80s, and then there was this big dip around like the zeros, early zeros. That's why a lot of these records from the zeros are very hard to get on vinyl. For example, I've been looking for a while to get Usher's Confession on vinyl, because it was printed like in 2003, 2004, but it was like €300 to get one copy of it now, because it's limited. There's so few, like only a handful of records printed, because there was no demand for it.
No, it's all CDs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, and iPods and things like that.
Yeah, and now we're getting to the point that vinyl is the biggest thing in physical production right now. Physical distribution, it's like vinyl is like number one by a country mile. Then you get CDs and cassettes and everything else. So it really is important to consider, and a lot of labels do, but we never really got into it originally, and I'm trying to change that now.
Wow, that's something to look forward to. When do you think that's sort of going to happen?
We're about to release our first record. Like, it's an EP from HILOMATIK, actually. It's 7 artists who all made like songs. It's we do these series called A-sides EPs, where it's like records that fit together nicely on an EP, and it's like a couple of other labels like Drumcode and stuff to this as well. It's quite common in techno. It's like a compilation of a couple of techno records that we released. So that's going to be the very first one. And I just got the test pressings in like a couple of weeks ago. And when those arrived to the studio, imagine this, they arrived at the label, we didn't even have a record player. So I had to get a record player from a nearby store and buy some speakers to actually play it. Because I have one at home, but I didn't have one in the studio. And half the team didn't even know how to handle a record, because they're all like in their early 20s.
At a record label. It's so right? Funny.
Exactly that. So I had to teach them, like, hey, if you look at the record, if you look at the disc itself, hold it on the sides, don't put your fingers in the middle of the record, and just handle it carefully, put it on the player, just hover the needle above it and press start and lower down the, like, literally explain to them how to properly play a record.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun.
So do you know if you're going to release like a limited amount of records, or are you just going to sort of like sell them as they?
So what I want to do is, since the Heldeep is turning 10 this year, I want to do like a best of Heldeep Records. And then probably a couple of like limited singles and maybe some compilations as well throughout the years, like in years to come. Definitely with HILOMATIK, with these A-sides EPs, I want to keep distributing them on vinyl. We have recently switched, because the industry's kind of switched to this, from signing like one-offs, which is basically you sign one track from an artist and then the artist goes and release somewhere else, to signing a bunch of records and then roll them out as like an EP or an album throughout like an X amount of months. And I want to release a couple of those like EPs on vinyl and limited editions. Like we're not talking thousands and thousands of copies, but like 200-300, something like that.
People like that as well, like knowing that they're one of 200 people that have got that record.
Indeed. And there's great companies to work together with. I'm a huge fan of Blood Records and Bad World. They're UK-based companies. They fall under the same umbrella. And what they basically do, Blood Records makes Zoetrope records. And it's like a little movie playing on your disc if you play it. So if you spin the record like on your record player, it would showcase this little movie on the thing. It's really cool. And then I've got a couple at home, like one from Muse, Will of the People, for example, one of their latest albums. I have that on Zoetrope. And then Bad World, take it one step further, and they produce what's called liquid filled vinyls. So it's like literally, I have one from the Formula One soundtrack of the movie that was just released. And when you hold it, it's like a thick vinyl and there's liquid inside. So you move it around, it literally moves like the liquid inside the vinyl.
I don't know if I've seen that before.
It's really cool.
Is it usually like a colour?
It can
colourful?
be. So this one it's a black liquid which should resemble like motor oil.
That's quite cool.
Yeah.
I like that actually.
And I think one of the funniest one, they made the news with one of their earliest releases, which was, do you remember Saltburn, that movie? Yeah. So they made a bath water filled record.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you can imagine like
Yeah.
the scenes, like so and it has that little like drain in the middle, so it's like
People are creative, aren't they?
It really is.
It's mad what you can do nowadays with stuff like that, especially like you might as well, we talk about the physical distribution thing, like there are so many ways to do it now that like it's
I
why
love
not?
these initiatives.
Yeah.
So one thing I still have like living rent free in the back of my mind, we released a track on Heldeep called DT64, which was a collab between two German artists, Mogwai and Kai Tracid. This was a techno record, an acid techno record. It was the first techno record released on Heldeep, and eventually this is what led us to create HILOMATIK. But DT64 did incredibly well, because what I didn't know at the time was that it was the return of Kai Tracid, who had like a hiatus for like 15 years. So his first record after 15 years. And I said to him, because it's acid techno, what I eventually want to do is like make a liquid filled record with like this kind of poisonous color, like that green kind of poison kind of color, because it would work really well with that acid idea. So yeah,
that's kind of the imagery you have when you think of like acid music, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So that's what I would love to do one day still. And it's like, that would be a single release, but a limited amount. I looked into it back in the days, back when liquid records weren't like too easy to produce still. Like now a few companies have figured it out, but back then it cost like €100 to create one. So, and nowadays it's much more affordable, but you just need to get the right people working on that for you. So yeah.
Yeah, no, lots of exciting things to look forward to. Okay, what would you say is the most challenging part of managing a label?
Dealing with artists and their managers. And some of the artists we work with are incredible. Like anything you ask them, they would instantly deliver, or they would do their best to do, or they would ask their fan base to interact or whatever. But I think this kind of touches on what I think is the biggest issue we face as an industry, that even though it's great that everyone and anyone can join in, like I can literally pick someone from the streets here in Leeds and say, sit down, I'll teach you how to produce music. And anyone can do it nowadays because it's very accessible. At the same time, there's no education in it. So you get a lot of artists who start in their bedrooms and best friends going, oh yeah, I'll manage you. Oh yeah, how hard can it be? And then they forget about like a lot of things they need to know. And then you kind of eventually, especially from a label side, you start to realize that managing an artist or being an artist is a profession that takes 24/7, like I just touched base on earlier. But that also requires knowing a lot of things. So oftentimes we get, like when I send out a contract, I get questions of things that I'm like, if we take this out now, it's like, this is literally, this being in here is in your benefit. You know that, right? So like those kind of things, you have to explain everything. And obviously we can't all be like legally like well like educated to know all the ins and outs, but you've got artists and managers who don't respond for weeks and then instantly go like, I want to get this out next week. And I'm like, that won't happen. Like
That's crazy. Like as an artist, you would not want to think that your manager's taking weeks to respond to labels.
no,
Like
I know.
that's
But
yeah.
that's like that happens. But I think the underlying issue, like I said, is like the lack of education in the music industry, because back in the days, you really had to build like a profile throughout the industry. It was like there were a lot of gatekeepers and everywhere, so people really got to kind of know the way it works. And right now, it's a free for all. Like, and what makes it even harder is an artist can be like making his very first record, putting it on TikTok, it blows up, and there's like a major label knocking with $100,000 saying, "Hey, I want to buy this from you," right? And like that happens overnight. And overnight success is something that's always been around, but it's gone like to a point where it can literally happen to anyone at any time. Try and manage that. That's impossible.
Especially with TikTok and all of the rest of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're in a point in the industry right now where, like I say, it really is a free for all, and it's good to have some more guidelines occasionally, or at least some knowledge of like how to properly deal with at least the basics, like how you then proceed as an artist and the things you do that make you you. By all means, keep doing that, right? But cover the basics. Make sure that the red line's okay, and how you divert from it then, and make sure that you stand out. That's all up to you.
No, I can see why that would be challenging, especially I feel like a lot of the time you just expect all managers and artists to be like really professional and
Yeah.
you know studied music business, but obviously you're not going to get that.
Exactly,
So I can see why that would be challenging. On the flip side of that, what is your favorite thing about managing a label?
I mean, being able to release new music every time, like exploring new artists, new sounds, and showcasing them to the world, that's probably the best thing there is. Like I say, I'm driven by that thing. I love to showcase people. This is something that's really cool, or at least in my opinion, is really cool. And that's being able to do that pretty much every day of the week that's the best thing.
Yeah.
Really
Oh,
is, hands
amazing, amazing. So as well as champion new artists and new music, you are a DJ and producer
Yeah.
yourself. When did that come into the picture?
This was about 3 or 4 years ago. I was chatting to two other guys who were in the same building as I was back then, and they run an academy for young producers in the Netherlands, and they have about 200 students. They do really well for themselves, but all they practically do is teach others how to produce music. And all I do or did back then was release music from others. So we came together and we were like, what if we start our own project and just have fun in the studio, make something cool? There's no pressure because we have full-time jobs. We know that the paycheck will come in at the end of the month. We can afford like either mortgage or rent or whatever. So let's just have fun, plan a few days in the studio, create some songs. And one of the first things we worked on was a remix for an Australian artist called Wongo. He just released a record on Heldeep. It's a tune called Apple. And I remember there was this radio promoter in Australia knocking on my door like, I need remixes. I need to have this to promote this song. So I was like, all right, let me try something. So I asked Wongo like, hey, would you mind if I just, with a couple of mates, we try something out? We'll give it a nice spin or whatever. And we were always kind of like a little bit influenced by the sounds of guys such as Noisia and Skrillex and Zoo, and to a certain degree, well, Fred again wasn't around back then, but kind of the stuff he was doing was what we were kind of trialing with as well. So Bongo said, yeah, sure, here you go. Here's the stems and stuff. And I remember there's this singer featured on that track. Her name's Jade Alice, and she has an incredible voice. It's like that. You'll have to go and check it out. Like her music is really good, but her voice is quite distinct, and I like that. It's unique. So we started messing around with the track, and we made a remix. And I remember there was this song by Don Diablo back then. He covered Roger Sanchez's "Another Chance," and I know that it was like a side project called Big Pineapple, and it started off with this like very mellow piano, and it was kind of that that late night feeling of you sitting like next to like a fireplace somewhere, and you're just chilling, and it's Sunday night, it's very late, it's very quiet, like that kind of vibe, like jazzy kind of vibe. So we started off with that and was like, we need to twist this into like a garagey thing maybe. So we experimented with that, eventually came to a remix, showed it to one guy, was like, dudes, this is great. Like, we released it through Heldeep, did like 500,000 streams or whatever. It was like, let's do something with this. And we decided, like, it was very hard to come up with a name because it's three guys and we're like, what do you call yourself, right? So, and we settled on the name Midnight in Amsterdam because it's like, it has that darker-ish kind of vibe. And one of us is actually from Amsterdam, lives in Amsterdam, and my dad's originally from Amsterdam. So we like the international ring to it.
I think that's why I'd assumed that you studied in Amsterdam because it was like Midnight in Amsterdam.
Yeah, it's like everyone and their mums in the world know Amsterdam. Yeah. Maybe not always for the right reasons, but everyone knows Amsterdam, right? Yeah. So I was like, if we use that name, we're Dutch, it makes sense. Like, I always introduce myself as like, I live near Amsterdam because everyone knows where Amsterdam is. So let's just use that name to our advantage. So, and we liked the vibe. We could kind of tie it into this darker-ish kind of undertone that Noisia and Zoo and stuff all have. So it kind of all came together like that.
Yeah. I kind of like the fact that there's three of you and there's three words in the title as well. It's sort of like, it's got a nice vibe to it.
I'm the in.
You're the in. So with the three of you, I can imagine the dynamic for producing and DJing, like that probably took some adjusting to and sort of finding your roles.
Yeah.
So let's start with the production side of things. How do you guys work together when you're producing?
So it's me, Tom, and Roger. And me and Tom, we're the same. We're like, we can be very creative, but we're also very stubborn, especially in the studio. So that obviously causes some friction sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. And then me coming on from a label point of view saying, as an A&R, I think we need to do this and that. And he's like, nope. And Roger, he comes from an industry of like being in bands and stuff. Before we started this project, he had never been into like a music studio for producers and not in the way that we do it now. So Tom is usually the guy behind the computer because he runs that academy, knows literally every plugin on planet Earth from the top of his head. He literally is the most insane producer you'll ever meet. Literally, hands down. I promise you this. Like, if you put him in a room with any of the biggest producers in the world, he would know how to wow them. Like, it's crazy. I've never seen something like this. Literally.
Right, okay.
So, and Roger has this incredible feel for melodies because he has an absolute hearing. He can instantly play anything. And he comes up with literally the most brilliant melodies. Kind of leaves the question, what do I do? I'm there chilling. Like,
bit of everything as always.
I'm the orchestrator. Like.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, okay. And you guys produce on Cubase, don't you?
Yeah.
Because obviously the go-tos for most people is Ableton or Logic.
Yeah.
What made you guys decide on Cubase? Tom, okay.
He was working, he started in Cubase about 15 years ago. He's a bit older than we are. He's like, I'm 30, he's 37. And he used to produce hard dance and dubstep and those kind of stuff back in the days, like about 10, 15 years ago. He had his breakthrough moment basically, locally, did some gigs around the Netherlands, never really toured internationally, but he did well for himself. And then a few things happened which led to him not being able to do that anymore. And now, he does spend a lot of time in the studios. So he's the guy who knows everything about production. So he's the one producing mostly. And like he was using Cubase back in the days. I've always used Ableton, but mostly for making like 1 hour mixes and stuff that we can then send to radio stations. And I still do that. So I still use Ableton for that. But Roger had to make the biggest adjustment because he used Logic all the time.
So all three of you, like all three separate.
Yeah, literally like that.
DAWs.
So, but since Tom and Roger work together quite frequently anyways for the Academy, Tom kind of showcased to Roger how Cubase works and that it's much easier than most people think, honestly. And it's the OG. It's like the first DAW. So we kind of settled on Cubase. We got used to it. And right now, if I'm in front of the computer while Tom, I don't know, goes for a walk or whatever, I know my way around Cubase a little bit. So we all kind of settled on that eventually.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds like you found like a really, really nice, like solid working method that plays on all of your strengths.
Yeah, it does.
With DJing, do you play back to back? Like, do you take it in turns to play a tune, or how does that dynamic work?
So Roger doesn't DJ. He's never learned how to play as a DJ. Like I say, he came from bands, and he doesn't really have any interest in learning how to DJ anyways. Tom does know how to DJ, but he's not always able to travel. So when it's an international gig, I would be the one traveling. I would be the DJ just by myself. But if Tom is able to, he would travel along. So, but we would usually have need to have a couple of days in a specific town or whatever for him to be able to do that. We do have a gig like in the Netherlands later on in the year, and we would all be there. Roger would probably be popping off confetti, whatever, and me and Tom would go back to back, and it's usually like 3 records or so each, something like that.
Yeah, nice. And what was your first gig as Midnight in Amsterdam?
I think this must have been ADE, 2-3 years ago. There's a guy, Dutch DJ, his name's Fado Gonzalez. He always hosts Dirty House, which is a very good concept, works well during ADE. And he gave us a spot on the lineup at like an iconic Amsterdam venue. So that was really cool of him. I'm very grateful for that. And that was like the first gig we did as Midnight in Amsterdam, really.
Yeah, what a debut, like ADE, Amsterdam.
It was really
and
good.
it was very apt, isn't it, with the
venue
name?
called Club Nix, which is also very well known and a big venue to play at. So I think that was the very first one. Yeah.
Do you see yourself as a DJ who produces or a producer who DJs, or would you say it's sort of like even?
So for me personally, I'm more a DJ who produces. For Tom, it's kind of the other way around. And for Roger, he's just a producer.
Yeah, I like that though. I like how you've all got your different things that like you prefer, and
we kind of like fill in on each other's weaknesses a little bit.
Sounds that way.
I also know a lot about labels, right? So I'm usually kind of like taking up that management kind of role as well, dealing with all the labels, contracting and everything. Usually when a contract comes in for a label, me and Tom, we would sit together. I would have gone over it already, filtered out a few things, and then me and Tom would go and sit together and go over it one more time. And if both of us are satisfied with it and the label's good with it, then Roger comes in and he just signs. He's like, oh yeah, I trust you guys.
Sounds perfect. Sounds perfect. How do you balance? So obviously, like we've said, you wear a lot of hats in the industry. How do you balance the business side of running labels with the creative side of making music and DJing? How do you sort of like find the time for both without sort of letting one go?
I just don't sleep.
Don't sleep.
Don't sleep, drink a lot of coffee. No, I'm just kidding. For some reason it works. I don't know. It's weird. Like when I'm on the road, I still bring my laptop so I can still open up emails. And I have a brilliant team working with me at the label. So I know that whenever I'm away, the label's still in good hands. But when I'm at the label, like I'm also able to, because I work extremely fast. And it's not always a good thing, but in this, it's like, because of that, it allows me to do a lot of different things. So I, like about a year ago, I started reading a bit more about like the different kinds of people there are and stuff. And it's like, I'm very extrovert and very task focused, which means that I can take on a lot of different things at the same time and kind of execute them all, because I can kind of see that picture in my head. I can say like, okay, this needs some extra work and it connects with that and stuff like that, without being too kind of like vague about this all, but kind of like, that allows me to do a million things at once.
Which is impressive within itself, but I think it's the fact that half of what you do is so business focused and half of what you do is so creative. Do you ever struggle to sort of switch your brain from that business mode to the creative mode?
No, that's the thing, because it's like flicking a switch for me, and it goes hand in hand, because it's all music. So, you know, if I was to do something completely different, like outside of music, that might have been a little bit of an issue. But because it's all music, it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I love it. So have you got, this might be a tricky question actually, but have you got a favourite gig memory from playing out as Midnight in Amsterdam?
Ooh, but you know what? I played Ministry of Sound last year. That was really good.
I saw that on your Instagram. That was
great.
so cool.
Got to test out a few records that I love, like that moment where people go, what is this? Like that, right? And that happened like with 1 or 2 records that were our own records. That was really cool. Really like that. I think the best is yet to come though, because at the end of this year, for the first time ever, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm gonna go somewhere far away. Let me put it like a little bit more like vaguely, because it's like it's not officially announced yet, and I know that if I do, it might get me into a bit of trouble.
That's absolutely fine. We don't want that to happen. No?
in a very big location and with a couple of big artists, and that I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, amazing. And we mentioned at the very start of our chat that Creamfields was your first festival that you went to.
Yeah, in the UK.
well, yeah, in the UK. Hopefully not your first ever festival you went to in the UK. Are there any UK festivals that are sort of on your radar that you'd love to play?
Boomtown.
Boomtown.
I would love to.
Would you play a drum and bass set or a techno set or a garage set?
Drum and bass for sure. Like I would love to play a drum and bass set at Boomtown. Definitely.
Boomtown's amazing. Like you have to, that would be sick to play a set
like,
at Boomtown.
yeah, I don't even have to think about it. Like that's one that's been on my radar for a long time. I mean, I could do like theoretically, I could do garage and drum and bass, but that's difficult because it's usually different stages, isn't it? So, like, I would probably go for drum and bass in that regard, but like that's hands down like easy to answer for me.
What is it about Boomtown that draws you to it so much?
Oh, I've seen like a couple of videos, and I like the vibe, I like the energy, I like the bit of rawness that you see as well. Like, so yeah, it just attracts me for some reason. Like, for me, it's like that shiny thing of like, oh, look, like that kind of idea, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully, like fingers crossed, that would be amazing. So it feels a bit random to just be like bring the country of China into this, but I know that that's been quite a big part of what you've been doing recently, bridging the gap between Europe and China. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
It's still very early days, but like China's always like interested me because it's such a different market compared to what we know in Europe, what we know of the US, and like the way I hear it from people that are from China, they say like, they describe it as Europe always invents something new, whether it's like drum and bass or garage or whatever. Then the US sees that and thinks, oh, I like that. I'll try and do that here as well. But that takes a few years. And then China goes, oh, look at what they're doing in the US. Maybe we should try that here as well. So you can tell like they've just had that big room kind of era. And they're heading more towards the, let's call it a bit more sophisticated stuff, like you see drum and bass do it really well in China right now, for example. But also like the melodic house is taking a little bit more room, tech house, those kind of things. So, but it's such a closed market that we don't know much of, that I think, what if I break the deadlock, be able to do stuff there, either go there myself as an artist or release music there from, well, we already release music from the label, but you have to remember that the platforms they use there are like vastly different than the ones that we have here, because they don't have Spotify, they don't have like Apple Music, they WhatsApp, like you can't even communicate like through the European channels. So they use like WeChat, they use NetEase, they use Tencent, and those are platforms that we don't know anything of, but it's like they're one-stop shops. Like if you use WeChat, you can pay with it, but you can also communicate with friends, you can listen to music, and like it literally is everything in one. So knowing more about that market allows you to interact with the market, and being able to bring either artists from Europe to China. So that's the latest thing that's come on my radar. I want to bridge the gap between China and Europe, where I can say, we've got some European artists who don't even have to be the big names, like, because guys such as Oliver Heldens, Martin Garrix, Rehab, David Guetta, they can all play in China. Like I got sent this picture just before we started recording, and it's like this massive lineup with like Dimension, for example, playing in China, but it's during ADE. And I'm like, what?
Really?
Yeah, literally. And
I don't know much about the dance scene in China, and I mean, that's probably part of it.
Exactly.
How are you actually, like, with all of that said about it being quite difficult to access that information because they use different internet systems to what we do in Europe, how are you accessing that market and understanding more about it?
So the last year or so, I like last year at ADE, I bumped into this guy who is originally Chinese, does a lot of events, festivals and stuff in China, and he moved to the Netherlands. And we started talking a bit more. He represents some Chinese artists, and we connected very well. So we kind of like, over the last couple of 2-3 months or so, we developed a plan to like bring some Chinese artists to the European market with my knowledge of radio, DJ promo and stuff, the labels that I know, that I work with, but also bring European artists that way. So this is, like I say, very early days, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. He's passionate about. We have the connections. We just need to align it. And then we can say, oh, these artists are doing well here in Europe. Excuse me there. These artists do well in Europe, but the festival season in China starts in October and ends in April. And that's when it's the kind of like down low here, this down season here, because the festivals in Europe are usually starting from like April, May until August, late August. So it connects well in that sense too. So if you can bridge that gap and you can bring those artists from here to there and vice versa, you can get like a whole different kind of music in each country really, or a couple of countries here in Europe, at the same time, and kind of keep it going 24/7. Mhm. Fingers crossed. Like I say, early days, but a lot of work to come still. But it's definitely something that has potential, in my opinion.
I don't know how you're finding time for a new almost research project alongside everything that you're doing. I mean, with that said, you've got We Artists,
Yeah.
which is a promotional company for DJs
Yeah.
Based in the Netherlands. Could you tell us a little bit about that company? How did it start and sort of what sparked you to go on that venture?
Yeah, I started it about 7 years ago when I was approached by Slam, another Dutch radio station, to help them out by putting together their Slam Mix Marathon, which is a weekly rundown of DJ mixes. Every Friday it goes into Saturday, and it's like 24 hours of nonstop DJ mixes. So I used to program all of those mixes that would be sent to me. I would listen to them and say, okay, this is good for that time, and so on. People still approach me for that, by the way. I've stopped doing that like 5 years ago, but still people come to me saying, "Can you get me on Slam?" I'm
Yeah, you must have made your mark then if people are still
but
reaching
I know,
out.
like, I still know the right people there to reach
Yeah.
out and stuff. But at the same time, I was like, well, at Armada, I built quite the network of like DJs. Why don't I start venturing into DJ promo? So I take records on from like DJs and labels. So recently I've worked with like some UK labels like Perfect Havoc, for example. Worked with the majors, Warner, Sony, Universal. I did some stuff for a guy called Massano. He has a label called Simulate. Recently took on Chris Avantgarde. And like I promote their music to like the A-listers like Garrix, Gedda, and so on, but also to, I call them tiers below, but it's like those DJs that are like on their way to become A-listers, right? So I try and reach about everyone and anyone, but only if it makes sense. So I wouldn't send someone like John Summit a hard dance record because I know he would likely not play it, or like a funky house record. So I would send him the stuff from like that comes through from Marsano or Camel Fat or Artbat or stuff like that, because I know that is kind of in his lane. And this is how I kind of try and figure out for every DJ kind of like what kind of music do they like to get, and can I service that to them? So recently I ventured into Afro House because Afro House is big right now. So I bring on some clients in the Afro House scene and service their music to like the bigger group of Afro House DJs that I know. And that's what We Artists has been for like the last 7 years or so, until like now with Midnight in Amsterdam, what's going on with like my China ventures, and I'm trying to bring that all into We Artists as well.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Was there anything in particular that sparked you to start the promotional company?
I think it kind of comes down to me liking to showcase others what's cool, right? So it's I don't want to be as straightforward as saying I saw a business opportunity and I jumped on it, but it's more like I liked doing that back in the days already. I did it at Armadas. I wanted to continue doing that, sharing my love for music with others, sharing the records that I, in this regard, get sent with other DJs. So, and I'm a boutique store. So I also turn down a lot of records because I can't service 20 records all at once.
No, of course, yeah. And you've got to believe in them as well to be able to be sending them out to these
believe
big
in them.
DJs.
I've got to have space because, again, I can't go to Chesto and say, hey, Chesto, I've got 20 records for you to listen to.
Yeah.
He'd be like, no way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another way that you champion artists and talk about music and share this love is through your podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I know it's in Dutch. How do you pronounce your podcast
name? It's called
name?
Als het kraakt, which translates to if it crackles. It's like the crackle sound that you get if you put a record on. Like for the first time, you have that little bit noise, especially if it's a little bit dirty and there's a little bit of dust on it, right? That's the kind of sound that it makes, and that's what it translates to. And I started that with a friend of mine about 3 years ago. We were sitting in my place having a beer and was like, I actually quite love vinyl. Like I have a couple of records at home, but I don't really know too much about it. And he was in the exact same position. And he works at Slam at the radio station. So we were like, why don't we start a podcast about this and just go on an adventure? We'll bring in some guests here or there. We'll do a few episodes, see how it goes. Also say to our like listeners, we're not experts. We're fanatics. Like we're enthusiasts. We want to learn about this thing. So join us as we go in exploring all this. we're enthusiasts. So, I said to him like, okay, we'll prep everything. We'll prep our episodes. We can get some good like bumpers and stuff going because he works at the radio station. We can ask the producers there to produce some stuff for us. And we basically started and we're like, well, this is episode 1. I think the episode 1 that we did was about colored vinyl and share our opinions on that. And we built a structure where it's like, we have an opener and we would announce a few things that you'll hear during the show. And then it'd be like the latest news about vinyl. And it's like, whether it's like artist X or Y is releasing a new record, or we have these kind of like heartfelt stories of people that are being discovered because their record all of a sudden gets played and becomes big. But also about like pressing plants that are starting, or people that sell their entire collection of like 50,000 records, and like all kinds of stuff regarding to music. I remember stories of like Coldplay, for example, who went into this eco-friendly vinyl, and they rented 2 massive ships coming from the Netherlands who went to Indonesia, collecting a lot of like bottles, plastic bottles that are in the sea. And they would have some kind of machine in Belgium who would recycle those bottles into records.
No way, I never knew that.
So those kind of things is what we started discovering. And then we'd have a couple of topics we would talk about, whether it's like we share our opinions on things like colored vinyl and stuff, but we would also talk about our record collections and what's coming up. And we started building a fan base. And I think we're now 140 episodes in. We've been doing it pretty much every week. Occasionally we miss a week or two, but like still to this day, every single time I go into the studio with like, I so thoroughly enjoy doing that.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know your listening figures are doing well as well, aren't they? Which is amazing. I think a big part of it must be for your listeners, the fact that, like you say, going into it, you weren't experts talking about it from an expert point of view. So it's almost like people were, well, you are an expert in records, but in terms of the vinyl side of things, you just wanted to explore it. The listeners probably felt like they were going on a journey with you.
Yeah, and they love letting us know that we're saying things wrong or whatever. Like, they get in touch with us. Like, we get messages. If we don't upload, we usually upload on Thursdays. If we don't upload, we get messages like, where's the podcast? Like, I want to have my new episode. My mom, she listens religiously every Monday to the podcast. But literally, she texts me like, hey, is there no episode today? I'm like,
I love that though. That shows
incredible.
That you've really built something that people are like looking forward to, and it's part of their week.
Routine.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Gosh, that must be amazing.
It is, and we've got the greatest community like you can imagine in that sense. And I had this weird encounter from like, that was one of my first moments that I was like almost humbled. I was like, so occasionally we talk about certain records that we cannot get. And there was this one record, I don't even remember which record it was anymore, but I said on the pod, like, I'm looking for this record. I can't find it. If anyone knows how to get it, just let us know. And then this one fan reached out. It was like, I bought 2 of these. You can buy one from me for like retail price, like the actual retail price. So I was like, okay, let's meet up at my local record store. We'll go through, browse for a couple of records as well. Will be fun. And the guy walks in and he's mid-40 and he's shaking. He's like, you are that guy from the podcast.
Really?
And the first thing he says is like, I know everything about you and you know nothing about me. And I was like, it's so weird. It's so weird. And he was like the kindest person you can imagine. But he was nervous meeting me. And I'm like, and I'm an open book. I love meeting people. I'm happy to talk to anyone, really. And it's like, what's going on here? This feels weird. Like
That's really cool though. That's like total kudos to you and everything that you've done, and you've built this platform with, you know, everything that you've done in music. It's sort of like built into this.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't speak any Dutch, so it's interesting to hear you talk about what you talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I tried to listen to a few episodes, but I was like, unfortunately I don't speak any Dutch. But you did mention off camera that you were thinking of maybe doing a few English episodes.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, it's still, again, I think that's very, very early days, but we're talking to a big brand in vinyl about doing some spin-offs in English. Also because they have a lot of connections to artists. They're looking for some kind of podcast that can bring these artists on and stuff. And since we have so much experience with it and we already have kind of like a structure going, they were like, well, maybe there's something here. So we're now in talks, but hopefully it leads to something, because this you know, it takes a while to get that going. But
yeah, absolutely. But it's cool to know that there might be something in the pipeline.
Do you know what the key is? And I think this is also because, like, I have a background in radio. My friend works at radio, so we know how to present. Like you can listen to a podcast, and oftentimes you have these podcasts like, I've been going to stores and I've been doing this. But what you need to do is like, this is the best record ever, and here's why. Because that's a trick that a lot of people are not aware about. But when you hear me say this, pay attention to it. Radio presenters, what they do is they make something sound incredibly big, like over the top, because that feels happy to a lot of people. And that's the trick. So what you want to do is like, you want to present something like, I found this amazing record. And then because the way you use your voice, people think, I'm enthusiastic about this. I want to know more.
Even when you're half listening to something and someone's being really enthusiastic on the radio or a podcast, like you're not even really clocking what they're saying, but you're like, oh yeah,
I gotta
get excited about this too.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So highs and lows of having a podcast. What would you say is the most challenging thing about having a podcast?
Well, recording every week, apparently.
Yeah.
It's tough, like, because we have to go to a specific location. I have to drive up to Amsterdam. I have to combine it with all the other things I'm doing. Usually on Tuesday mornings, I go to Amsterdam and record. What's also quite challenging is to get like guests on. We don't always get guests on. Most of the times it's just me and him. But getting the right guests on and getting good stories out of them. We had the odd guest here or there that just really didn't have anything to say. Like they're artists who release music on vinyl. So like, let's invite them. They're good names. And then it's like one of those examples of like, I came into the store the other day. And then there's no story. Like you have to almost draw it out of them. Those are the harder times. So I would say that's the biggest challenge probably, because let's be real, it really is fun to do. And it's like a fun project that we took on as a hobby. We don't make any money out of it at all. Like it really is a full-time hobby project.
With that said, what is your favorite thing about it?
The interaction with fans, like the enthusiasm of sharing things, discovering new things. And we even get like presents sent sometimes, like fans that have started like pressing their own records, and they send it to us just as like almost like a token of gratitude for doing the podcast. And yeah, it is. Really is. And meeting big artists, right? So there was one artist, he's a Dutch legendary singer, his name's Frank Boeien, and he came on and he's like in his 60s, and he was I remember my parents are like big fans of his music, and he brought a couple of extra records and he was like signing them, and was like, would you mind doing one for my parents? And he's like, sure, here you go, and come to the concert later and stuff. So it opens up so many opportunities. And I think one of the most amazing things was there's a Dutch DJ, his name's Laidback Luke, and he came on for an episode, and it was around my birthday a few years ago, and he had a couple of his records with him, and amongst them was his very first record that was released in '95. It was still sealed. You can tell that it had a little bit of shelfware, but it was still sealed and stuff. And he just gave it to me. He was like, as a birthday present. I was like, dude, look.
Wow, I need to put that in a glass box
like that,
on the wall. Wow.
So those are the most amazing things that you encounter with podcasts like that.
It's like a physical like appreciation of what you create as a passion project as well. And it's nice, like it sounds like you'd do it even if there was no listeners. So it's even like a bonus that so many people are loving it. It is a bonus.
It's a massive bonus.
Yeah, amazing. So we've talked about all the things you do in music. You do a lot. So I don't know if you'll actually have an answer to my next question, but one thing that I'm always curious about is if you didn't work in music, what do you think you'd be doing?
Probably a history teacher.
Really? I wasn't expecting you to say that. Why?
I love history. In fact, I have a book with me about, it's the biography of Caesar, for example. I'm reading that right now. It's 600 pages. Very fascinating stuff. Like, I love history. Anything regarding like the Dark Ages, medieval times, I love that kind of stuff. So, and I'm like, it literally is like anything that happened, even if it's like Second World War stuff. And so there's this saying, funny enough, that apparently all guys think about the Roman Empire at least once a month.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. Is that true?
I don't know. I mean, I'm reading a book about it.
Yeah, probably every day.
Right? So that kind of stuff really fascinates me as well. So I would probably end up teaching people about history or something like that.
Oh, interesting. And then we've already talked about what sort of you like playing football and doing FIFA and stuff. What else do you like doing outside of music?
Not too much, really. I like going to the gym, although I've been injured for a while. I had like this tennis elbow, so couldn't really go. It's like this sport, like padel, that I like playing. I
want to give that a go, actually. It's really popular at the minute.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I know.
It's really good.
Yeah.
But so I like doing that. I just generally like watching movies and series. I'm currently, again, for like the 10th time, rewatching all the episodes of Entourage, which I absolutely love. Brilliant series on
Never
HBO.
seen it.
Oh, you should. You're missing out, honestly. So I love doing that kind of stuff. Just chilling, really. Spending time with friends and family is also very important to me. So those kind of things.
It's what refuels you for your work, especially when you
Yeah.
are passionate about your work. It's
Yeah.
important to have those downtimes as well. Highs and lows of your career, not even just your career, but just sort of like of your field of work. I like to end on a high. So first of all, what is the hardest part of what you do?
You have to smile and wave all the time. You have to be friendly to anyone. You can't really, like I said briefly before, I'm a bit stubborn sometimes. So, and if I'm of the opinion that something ain't right, it ain't right. So you have to be kind of like, occasionally you have to be kind of like saying to people like, okay, I know we cannot do this, we don't want to do this, but let's do it because you're the boss. Like occasionally happens with Oliver, for example, where he wants to put out a record 2-3 weeks after he's delivered it to me, and I'm like, can't do this, I need 6 weeks. And he's like, no, but we have to. And then it's like, okay, I just have to swallow the pill and do it, right? So that's a hard part. You have to deal with people all the time, you deal with emotions. I'm like, I'm a very task focused person. So if I can't get certain things done, and or others can't get certain things done, I can be a bit on edge. I'd be like, come on, we need to get this going, right? So that's probably the hardest part. One thing that helped me really in this is probably the biggest piece of advice that I had in a while. It's like, you do have to remember, it's not open heart surgery. So no one's gonna die if you're waiting an extra day or two on this. Ultimately, you do, as a label in particular, you don't want to keep artists and managers waiting. So you do want to respond to them as accurately and fast as possible. But if that's an extra day, you need some extra time to reevaluate your answer, take that extra day. It really is important also for your mental well-being to just wait on responding to something or acting on something sometimes. So that's hard to keep thinking of that you're dealing with a lot of people and how to deal with them.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, what is the best thing about what you do?
The best thing is, again, like I say, working in music, being able to share your favorite thing on planet Earth with others, and the endless amount of connections you make with people. I have friends that I met 10 years ago when I started that I still see to this day, that probably gave up on music about 7 years ago, but I still come and visit them, take them along to events, and we have a great time together. And it's like those human connections are incredible. Like, you can't take that for granted. That's one of the best things in the industry, and something I highly encourage everyone. Like, we do this together. And whether, like, even the guys I'm coming over here to the UK now, the guys I'm coming to see, they're all welcoming me into their homes. We're having great times together in the studio, having a couple of drinks, and generally having a great time. I'm so grateful for that still every day.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't be sat here maybe if you weren't a people's person. And, our mutual friend, Ollie, I know you've been in the studio with him. So, it gets
exactly
you
that.
to so many places and meet
Yeah.
so many people.
Just be humble, grateful, and kind, like, to the best of your ability. Obviously, everyone has bad days. So I'm not sitting here saying you have to be like the Pope every single day.
Yeah.
But it's like you have to be kind and grateful, and just be aware that someone else is on his or her own trajectory. If you can help that person along the way, it means so much more to that person than you could possibly imagine. And if they will do that for you as well. So just be kind, be grateful.
No, I love that. Thank you for that advice. That's brilliant. What are your goals and focuses for the next year?
Well, definitely expanding what I'm already doing, with like everything going on with China, everything going on with Midnight in Amsterdam, potentially with the podcast. Keep on doing what we're doing with the label, trying to find like that next cool, unique thing that's a little bit quirky, a little bit more interesting than your kind of standard music that's going around nowadays. So those are things that I always work on. I had this question once before where someone asked me, what's your goal for the next 5 years? And I say, I live day by day. So I don't really know, and we'll see. Like, the best is yet to come. That's kind of, you always have to think of.
Yeah, exciting.
I've got there's one song. It's from a small hip hop artist from the US, and he has this line, and it's been in my WhatsApp since literally day one since I've heard it, and it's like, good morning, good evening, I hope you like dreaming. And that's like kind of the thing that I always keep in the back of my mind of like, I dream for like what's gonna come next, and like I want to make that happen. Like, you live to learn and you learn to live. Those are like the lines. It's very corny if you think about it, but it actually makes sense.
No, I like stuff like that. I love stuff like that. I know that you spoke about you've got an exciting show that's in the pipeline for Midnight in Amsterdam that you can't yet talk about. Yeah. But is there anything that you can talk about, upcoming shows, releases on Heldeep that people can get excited about?
So I've got a record on with Midnight in Amsterdam together with Eddie Craig. It's coming on Perfect Havoc in October. That'll be good. It's a garage tune.
Have you got can you say the title yet?
It's called Don't Get Shook. It's a really cool art as well. Wait until you see it. I'll show it to you after the recording anyways. But so that's coming soon. I am waiting on final confirmation, but I might be playing in London in early December somewhere.
Amazing. Can you say where or not yet?
Potentially Ministry. So let's wait and see. Before that, I'm actually hosting my own event in the Netherlands. It's the very first time I'm hosting it's like we call our events and mixes and everything 1 past midnight. So it's going to be a 1 past midnight event, and it's going to be the very first time. And I arranged like everything on my own. So from the venue, which is an industrial area, to the lineup, to everything really that comes along with organizing a party. So it's like 500 people in the east of the Netherlands. It's drum and bass meets garage. So the first 3 hours are going to be garage. I'm going to take the last hour to play garage. Then I'll venture into drum and bass for 1 hour. And then there's 2 more drum and bass DJs playing as well.
Amazing. What city is that in?
Enschede. It's like on the east, far east, near the German border.
Yeah, cool.
So that's coming end of November.
Amazing. So lots of exciting things to look forward to. I do not know how you've got enough hours in the day to do everything that you do.
I wonder about that myself as well sometimes.
I know. So, right, let's move on to our quick fire round. We've got some this or that questions, which I'm sure you'll smash. So
fire away.
Let's go. Day parties or nighttime raves?
Nighttime raves.
Release on vinyl first or straight to streaming platforms?
Preferably on vinyl first if possible.
I did guess you might say that. Yeah. Office day or studio day?
Ooh. I would say studio day with the asterisk that I can check my email.
Fair enough. No, that's perfect. Playing unreleased music or playing tried and tested tracks?
Unreleased music.
Night owl or early bird?
I'm a night owl.
Studio time or playing live?
Playing live.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee, hands down.
Garage or drum and bass?
Recently drum and bass, but I like both.
Summer or winter?
See, I would probably say winter because I'm more productive in the winter. But I do like summer if it's nice out. But I would say winter because of the productive.
Really? I feel like usually it's the other way around. People are more productive in summer.
No, try and work in 37 degrees. It's not going to happen.
Oh, fair enough.
It'll be dead slow and like nothing's happening.
Fair enough. Solo sets or back-to-backs?
Probably solo sets. And like, can I explain a little?
Go for it.
Like,
yeah.
Elaborate a little on that. That's like, I like back-to-backs, but I like to like jam one record after another. And like, if I can play 10 songs and the other one then plays for a couple of songs, fine. But no, I am going to do a back-to-back soon with, probably with Eddie Craig, funny enough. Yeah. I really look forward to that. But back-to-back requires chemistry. Yeah,
100%. Like, yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So maybe like, with your back-to-back coming up, is that going to be 10 tracks, or is it going to be track?
No, I'm probably going to say to Eddie, let's do 3.
Yeah, that's a good happy medium. City or countryside?
City, if it's not too big.
Collaboration or remix?
Collaboration.
Preferred BPM 125 or 135?
135.
Pre-party or after party?
After party.
Beach party or warehouse rave?
Warehouse rave, probably.
I'm surprised you said that after living in the Caribbean.
I did play a few beach parties there, and they're good.
Yeah.
It's just a different vibe.
Yeah, it is. Instagram or TikTok?
Personally, Instagram.
Cats or dogs?
Recently, dogs. I'm thinking about getting a Shiba, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, wow. Front row or back of the crowd?
Backstage.
But if you're forced to be out the front, would you rather be at the front or
no,
back of the crowd?
Back of the crowd, probably.
Festivals or nightclubs?
Festivals.
And then last question, midday in Amsterdam or midnight in Amsterdam?
Do I even have to answer?
Love it. Right, cool. So the final question that we ask our guests, and you've actually already answered it, so you might get the same answer.
Yeah.
If you could go back to the start of your career and meet yourself, what advice would you give to yourself?
Just enjoy the ride, because there's so much coming from this, and it opens up so many doors, opportunities, people that you'll meet, experiences that you will never have if you don't go into this head first. So definitely enjoy the ride, make the most out of it, and don't regret a single thing. Like, there are a few, obviously everyone has moments that they regret. I regret a few, probably more than a few, but definitely there's so many more moments that I so thoroughly enjoyed. And like, I heard another guest of you say, sometimes you just need to take a moment to reflect and actually think, hold up, has this really happened? Like, and that's something that you have to keep in mind, but definitely enjoy the ride.
If listeners have really enjoyed hearing you talk today, where can they find more about you on social media? Where can they find your podcast? And where can they find more about Heldeep?
So Heldeep's easy. Just Google Heldeep Records and you'll find us anywhere. My podcast is exclusively in Dutch for the moment, but if you want to try and find Als het kraakt, good luck. By all means, tune in. Let me know what you think. When it comes to my personal stuff, so I don't post anything on socials. You might see that. Like, I do post some stories on Instagram from time to time, but I have no posts up, no feed posts, no reels, nothing, except for Midnight in Amsterdam. So look for Midnight in Amsterdam. I think it's because that's too long of a name. It's called Midnight in Amsta on the Instagram predominantly. I run Instagram mostly. Tom does TikTok. So there's different kinds of videos. Tom is very kind of all over the place. You'll see that when you look on TikTok. It's really cool. So that's where we're most active. You can always hit me up on DMs, but I get a lot of DJs sending me demos and I just don't respond to DMs when it's demos. So for any DJs listening, just know, email me or email the team. We have like a setup where we check demos and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure my email's all over internet anyways. So I'm not even going to say it because I'm going to keep that to myself, because I know what it will, like, I'll be back home and there's 1,500 emails waiting for me. So long and short is just, I'm all over the internet with all kinds of ventures. We Artists has an Instagram page, but I haven't posted it on it for a while. So might have to look into that again. But
so you've got a website for We Artists?
Yeah, it's weartists.nl.
Amazing. Well, Rick, it's been lovely to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So much for coming on.
This was a lot of fun.
I'm so glad. And I look forward to see where your journey takes you next.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond the Booth with me, your host, Grace Garcia. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to check us out on social media at We Are Academy 94 and stay tuned for next week's episode. I'll see you there.